So here we go. This comes from NeoXTricks. Shout to him. Please give him a follow if you haven't done so already. Back in February of this year, Kazumasa Sato, right, CEO Jasmy, said that the blockchain tech used in the Jasmy IoT platform is a type of consortium, or consortium, depending on who you are, right? We all pronounce it different, that uses open source. He doesn't see any other answers than basically Hyperledger. And we covered all the significant things about Hyperledger. But anyway, I want to bring this to your attention. There's some key highlights here and so on. And if anything, I'm going to blow that up as well. Pull that up on the other screen just to make it a little bit bigger for you guys. So, he cites this from BCN. It's a, Japanese journalized publication, if you will. And for a long time, we have pointed out things about SG and, as a smart guardian, also SKC and so on. And I'm going to show you some other things to kind of help back up the significance of this. But it says, although SG and SKC are patent pending proprietary technologies, the blockchain tech used in the Jasmy IoT platform, like you said, is consortium type that utilizes open source. Back in the early days of blockchain, the market was dominated by the idea of differentiating blockchain engine itself. As tech development progress came, functionality differences that can become more smaller, interoperable, some other things that diminish. But the point is, like it says at the bottom, blockchain to use this is no longer so important, and the key to create a system that makes it easier to utilize blockchain for specific solutions. This is what they want to achieve with Jasmy, right? The secure data and so on. Now, when I jump more into, ahead of myself tonight, sorry, a little bit more of what Mr. NeoXTricks had. He's got this as well, and this is a nice video representation. So we just talked about SKC and SG, right? And you guys understand PDL's personal data locker. He goes on to mention decentralized identity, right, which is called DID. Jasmy chain, according to this, is the best place to offer you, me, and so on this decentralized identity and guarantee the security. It will be, of course, his private place. For many people, it will be their private place, and we'll have a total control over their own, you, me, and everybody else's personal data. That's the whole plan, at least. He did a real good job. I don't know if he's using AI or whatever to produce this visual. It's a really cool visual, and we'll jump into, of course, the next part, what we have on the lineup for Jasmy, and that is SMBC Bank. Why does that matter as well? So please smash that like. Take a look at this really neat video that he produced. Here we go.
Every day, we carry wallets full of cards. However, only a select few, like government IDs and credit cards, are widely accepted. Our society has established global norms for how we present and verify the credentials these physical cards represent. But there's no real equivalent for digital credentials. Why not? First, there's no standard mechanism for issuing digital cards. To issue universally acceptable digital cards or credentials, we need digital identifiers that individuals can own, independent of any entity, organization, or institution. Currently, we use email addresses and phone numbers as identifiers to access websites and apps. But our access to these identifiers and our personal information is at the mercy of service providers who can revoke them at any time. Secondly, there are no universally accepted standards for expressing, exchanging, and verifying digital credentials across organizational boundaries. This is all about to change. A new form of digital identity, based on emerging standards such as verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers, can enable such digital credentials to work everywhere, be more trustworthy, and respect privacy. Here's how it works. Meet Alice. Her new digital wallet empowers her to own and control credentials. Since it's not tied to any one organization, authoritative sources can confidently issue standards-based credentials to Alice. When Alice presents these credentials, websites and apps can check that they're valid, for example by confirming with a university that she's a student there, and then grant access accordingly. While this process may be easier, how do we know it's trustworthy? Decentralized identifiers leverage proven cryptographic systems. When Alice presents her credentials, her digital wallet generates a unique identifier and signs it using a private key, secured by a biometric proof or PIN that only she knows. The uniquely paired public key is published to a distributed ledger. Alice can present her digital student ID card to a bookstore, and before granting a discount, the bookstore can confirm that the university issued the card to Alice. This experience mimics what Alice does today. She can digitally present and authenticate a set of verifiable credentials just as she would present a physical card. And she can revoke them with a single click, just as she would return a card to her wallet. Best of all, these digital cards are private. This puts Alice in sole control of her digital identity. She makes the decisions for it. Verifiable credentials will make it easier to stay in control and help unlock a more trustworthy internet that respects privacy for all of us.
All right, so that was pretty cool. One thing I want you guys to take away from the entire show tonight is, the concept of ease of access and, the key towards literally mass adoption. You have to have ease of access to make people want to use the new tech. That's the bottom line. So when we get more into the stellar coverage, you're going to see a little bit more of, like we just saw even with Jasmy, right? The smart wallets and all these different types of concepts, but that ease of access. We talked about, I think a little bit yesterday in regards to the younger generations, Gen Z and so on. I mean, everybody wants something that's simple, easy to use. And, let's face it, we do talk about scalability, right? I have to have the same user experience as the next person. Don't have that. What do you really have? All right, we got a little bit more in regards to this, obviously. And I want to, of course, share a little bit more, not just that. But, I like what was obviously shared here, okay? So here's the next part. And again, it comes from NeoXTrix. And, I really like this guy. I really like what he shares with us and so on. Now, we, of course, talk about Jasmy and the concept of, personal data lockers and, personal data management, right? Obviously, data democratization. But this whole new concept of where they're entering in when it comes to finance democracy is where I've even seen people who are real big crypto enthusiasts for Ripple's XRP, Stellar, and so on say, is Jasmy really entering finance? And it's like, yeah, it's like people are shocked when they see that. Like we talk about cross-border payments and stuff like that. It's like, can they even be a drop in a bucket compared to the big players? And, for some people, this excites you as an investor. For other people, they're kind of skeptical, and that's okay, right? But is there anything really solid here with these new things that they're branching out to? So again, let's reference NeoXTrix here. And he talks about Jasmy's bank, SMBC. This is something that we talked about like a few months ago. Maybe you feel as though I didn't put enough emphasis on it because I was talking about, MUFG and so on. But, bottom line is there is something, in my opinion, that's solid in regards to this. When we consistently see Jasmy being tied to, the domestic banks of Japan and so on, and we redrew the connections and understanding that, Japanese yen denominated stable coins and the pairings that we can have with the utility token, for instance, of the future when we get Jasmy chain done, right? That's a big deal, right? So why is it such a big deal? And is this visualization a good representation of giving you a broader idea of the bigger picture? I think it is. Let it speak for itself. Let's go ahead and play this. And again, shout out to NeoXTrix. Please smash that like. Here we go.
A senior executive at one of Japan's biggest banking groups, the Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation, SMBC, has talked up the role of blockchain technology in the world of finance. and claims that businesses are now shifting away from business-to-consumer (B2C) offerings in favor of business-to-business (B2B) alternatives. SMBC, which has assets worth over $2 trillion United States dollars, per last year's financial report, is the only Japanese bank to join the Marco Polo Network blockchain initiative, a trade financing platform that also comprises the likes of the Bank of America, BNP Paribas, Commerzbank and Ing. Japanese media outlet SBB Plus IT quoted SMBC's deputy president and head of global business Masahiko Oshima as stating that while crypto-asset-related activities constituted B2C business, in recent years, blockchain has steadily expanded into the field of B2B transactions. The executive was speaking at a blockchain event co-organized by the Regulatory Financial Services Agency and the Nikkei Media Group. He stated that blockchain adoption would help banks provide better services, and could be used to boost the efficacy of internal operations. Oshima added that enterprise blockchain initiatives had the power to transform a number of business sectors, especially in the world of finance. He concluded that the full effect of banks' blockchain-related moves would likely be felt a decade from now, as banks tend to take a long-term view when it comes to business development. ____learn more. Bitcoin is blockchain's killer app, but blockchain is catching up. How blockchain will help send people into space. Shenzhen Stock Exchange could follow Shanghai after blockchain move. Visa Mole's interoperation with blockchain as it evolves into network of networks.
All right, before we close things out in regards to our Jasmy segment, I want to show you guys some statistics. I did this earlier in regards to Stellar, and I shared it, of course, on Twitter. I want to share this with you, and it's again from a site that I've been using, which is Demand Sage. This is the 2023 report. Going to go ahead and share this for you guys. And as you can see on this report, this time around, we're talking about what is essential, right? Essential blockchain trends and other statistics. Now, the reason I want to bring this to you guys is because we're talking obviously about Jasmy, and especially when it comes to IoT. As you can see here, some of the things that are mentioned are really, really bullish in my opinion. So for one, Jasmy is basically secure data management, right? Personal data management and so on. Like it says on number 39, secure information exchange is the most important element pushing blockchain adoption. One of your key takeaways for this show tonight should be, what is the pathway towards widespread adoption? I mean, we could talk till we're blue in the face about all these awesome technologies, but how does it appeal to the masses? So it says improved access to payments and financial instruments and other major drivers of blockchain adoption. We did talk about banks, and especially, Jasmy breaching into the whole concept of finance democracy. This is an interesting stat. Were you aware that nearly 80% of central banks throughout the world are considering launching their own cryptocurrency? Some people feel as though, well, we've already seen it, indicators of it. Bank of International Settlements, especially with creating a CBDC through Quant Network and so on, Bank of England and so on. But does that really represent a big, huge percentage? I think it does. I mean, that's a big, big amount, 80%. How about this? A lot of people just want to talk about 2024 and 2025, and rightfully so. I feel as though that I could retire by the end of 2025. I feel like I'm going to have generational wealth by 2030, okay? But, by 2030, blockchain will generate more than 3.1 trillion in commercial value. That's what they state. Now, for you and me and everybody else that's been studying this stuff for a while, we know it's going to be a lot higher than that, because it simply needs to be. I mean, math don't lie, right? You hear the talks about ETFs dropping left and right and so on, over 20 institutions coming in. So, I mean, this number should be a lot higher. I have at least at 10 trillion plus. Now, that may sound nuts, but again, think about the bigger picture, and especially before 2030. Now, we are on the topic in regards to Jasmy, and IoT is always going to be attached to Jasmy. By 2027, the Internet of Things will be worth around 1.463 billion. Again, I think that's lowballing it. I think it's going to be so much more higher than that, but still not too shabby. There's a little bit more in regards to these polls, and these are good, valid polls. We have cited Deloitte before. 86% of tech-savvy teens feel blockchain, of course, has significant benefits. 68% of people that were polled in regards to Deloitte, of executives, because, we were on the topic earlier about Jasmy executives like Kazumasa Sato, those executives say data security and privacy are the areas most in need of improvement to accelerate blockchain implementation. That right there, boom. I love the sound of that. All right, just a tad bit more. Take a look at this. So while we didn't talk about it earlier in regards to healthcare, we do talk about the healthcare industry quite often here at MaximusCrypto. So with that said, in the past, we mentioned key partnerships for Ripple, as in the CARE project, and they also, the CARE project, of course, are partnered with Jasmy. And you like the idea that, like I've mentioned before, birds of the feather will flock together, right? So look at what's mentioned. By 2025, which is, let's face it, guys, not that far away, blockchain will have been used in 55% of healthcare applications. Now, if you watched yesterday's show, we had that little parody in regards to the interview of Tokenizer with Gilbert Verdun. And while it was, kind of a nice little fun thing, it was educational. And one thing that Gilbert pointed out was the value of healthcare or medical data in itself is actually worth more than just the typical average data sets, if you will. When I'm looking at stats like this in regards to 55% of blockchain will be used in healthcare applications, again, I know what I have. I know why I hold it. The research trumps the FUD 110%. A little bit more of these stats. This is good stuff. All right. Blockchain has been used already to transfer over $270 billion worth of assets. That will substantially grow even that much more significantly here soon. Talks about the gaming industry. I obviously am a gamer and so on. Expected to grow to 39.7 billion by 2025. Of course, what sources this come from? Not just Deloitte, CoinDesk, we've cited them, Economic Times, Binance, right? But got to cite them sometimes, right? As I got more into this and so on, I saw some other interesting stats and that I thought were, worth pointing out, to say the least. And basically speaking, that is this up here. Let me just pull it up for a second. 86% of Americans have heard, or at least once, right? Maybe in passing, about blockchain. The thumbnail today basically reads DLT and blockchain and so on, right? So this is why I'm bringing this to your attention. With 24% having heard a lot about the tech, 82% of crypto users hold a bachelor's degree or higher. I'm not trying to make this, like, hey, people hold a degree are smarter than the next person. No, that is not true, in my opinion. But the key thing is recognizing some of these things, right? People want to learn more about some of these technologies. They heard about it. They understand there has to be a better way, right? Is there a better way for you? Is that why you're tuned in tonight? Because you do feel that there's a better way. I feel as though there is. How about this? 13% of USA adults, right, American adults, say they know nothing about crypto. Well, come join a show like this. Come join some of the other shows out there. Lewis Jackson, I guess, lost his channel. What a shame. Great educator. I know how it feels to lose his channel. But anyway, 58% of crypto owners are under the age of 34. And of course, we showed you guys some of the statistics. We referenced Gen Z, obviously the millennials, stuff like that, right? So all these statistics, I think it's very worth pointing out, because my key thing is, I have an idea of where this is all going in the future, right? And I think you guys do as well. And of course, that's why I want to bring it to your attention. In closing of this Jasmy segment, if you want to call it a Jasmy segment, these two things should be something that you should take away from what has been gathered. And again, you guys can look this up for yourself. Go to demandsage.com, and it's called blockchain statistics, and it is the 2023 report, so it is recent. I like this part because we're always talking about cross-border payments and so on, especially when it comes to Ripple's XRP and Stellar. Blockchain is mostly used in cross-border payments and settlements. Like it also says here, Time for Trust report, by 2030, blockchain will increase, listen to this, global GDP by 1.76 trillion. Again, it has to be so much higher than that. And the reason why I want to state that it has to be so much higher than that is for the simple reason of the institutional money coming in. You know, if BlackRock, I should say if, BlackRock is basically, you know, they have $10 trillion in assets. If you have Larry Fink basically saying that we are looking to tokenize assets and put it all on blockchain by 2030, then it's like, okay, wow, right? Some people say they're not going to put all of it on blockchain. It's going to only be a certain percentage. All right, again, like I mentioned before, let's lowball it, 10%. So at 10% of BlackRock's, you know, asset that's being tokenized, you are now bringing in something that's complementing the current overall crypto market, right? So that in itself, you know, could double the overall crypto market. And again, like I've also mentioned before, there's other ones, State Street, there's Vanguard, all these different ones will contribute to it. So is this accurate in regards to 1.76 trillion, or is that them just trying to save face and lowball it? Well, you can draw your own conclusion to that. This last part, this will be the closing part, excuse me. Blockchain-based crypto can potentially produce up to $1 billion in income for the banking sector alone. Yeah, absolutely. Like, what's a great example of that? Now, when we talk about Ripple's XRP, the example I've always mentioned in the past where, you know, you have a perfect case of ISO 222 and, you know, that new messaging standard that will be fully implemented by November of 2025, where, you know, send a cross-border payment or overseas payment. And before, if you were trying to send, you know, this country that's in distress, $10 trillion from this other country, and you had to have a central bank to send that kind of money, and the contract is with SWIFT, but let's face it, that might take more than a couple days because you got to finalize it, and maybe both countries don't speak the same language. You get what I'm saying? The message gets truncated. You know, I always use the example of sending it to the Bank of Seoul, South Korea. It's sent from the Bank of Athens, 2 different alphanumerical languages and so on. A lot of problems happen. That technology is from the 70s. What about getting with the new picture? So you have technologies like Ripple's XRP, where basically you send $10 trillion. And before these banks get hit with what? $60 billion worth of fees. So that statement we just saw from the statistics, is that accurate? Or is it going to be even that much more money, right? $1 billion plus. I think it's going to be so much higher. All right. Again, that concludes our segment for Jasmy. I know I included some of that Ripple XRP and so on.